Good afternoon from Sacred Space at Titania's Realm. It's 12:41 p.m. on the 18th of November 2024. By the gods, we're, over halfway through November now, and we're racing up to the silly season next month, the insane season, and then it'll be a whole new year. It's in 6 weeks' time. It's like life's flowing like a tumbling waterfall, sometimes over rapids and cascading rocks, and otherwise in gentle eddying little streams. But time is flowing so fast this year, and I've noticed in recent years, but it could be part of the aging process. But no, younger people complain to me about how fast time seems to pass even them by these days. So it's a bit astonishing. I'm just going to grab Charlie. Say hello to people, Charlie. Say hello to people. Hello. Told people that we had a visit from a water dragon earlier today. It wasn't quite early morning. Yes. There's lots of activity in the garden. And there was a lady, a grandmother, youngish grandmother, like my age, with her little grandson, who was about 2 or 3. And they'd stopped at my front gate, and they were, looking at something. I thought they were looking at the water dragon. I was hanging out washing. So I went over and I said, "Oh, what are you looking at?" She said, "Oh, the bush turkey." And I said, "Oh, you just must seeing the water dragon that was waiting at my back door." I said, I had a carpet snake at my back door virtually in the side garden for 12 days, and now I've got the water dragon moving in. She was quite, surprised and delighted too, but they hadn't actually seen the water dragon. He ran under the house. But yeah, I was surprised that they were so interested in the scrub turkey, because they're kind of everywhere. There's nothing special to look at. I completely take them for granted, except when that one was pecking at my toes when I was in the garden reading to you a few weeks ago or a month or so ago. That was astonishing, having a gigantic scrub turkey pecking your toes off, or trying to. Anyway, it's all been very lovely here, and that lovely lady said, "Oh, well, you have a beautiful garden," which I do indeed. Mind you, I put years and years of hard work into it. Around the time that my mother got Granny dumped in the high care facility, I channeled all my grief and rage and stress and turmoil into doing the garden, and wrecked my back and hurt myself many times, but I'm reaping the rewards of it now after all these years. It was well worth the effort. It's a lot I could be doing, actually, still digging excess plants out and moving things around, and well, by the time I finish the hard moshing on the weekend, I'm in recovery mode for the next 5 days. So the garden's been a bit neglected. I did plant out a lovely dahlia. I actually planted out 2, but only 1 came up, and the one that came up is growing very rapidly. So that's going to be a lovely display when that flowers, probably sometime in late December or January. So I'm excited about that. So yes, little things that keep me attuned with Mother Earth and nature, and bring forth fruits and flowers and delight one's heart, mind and spirit. Always worthwhile doing in the garden. So today I thought I would read the Kybalion. It's a full book, so it'll probably be, each page is not fully, takes up the whole page, so it may be 2 or 3 or 4 videos, I'm not sure. And I will try not to segue with my personal little opinions on everything, because this is a magical text. And but then sometimes I channel the spirits start babbling at me, and it happens sort of almost involuntarily. So I probably should do a protection prayer actually, so we don't get so many interruptions from other entities or energies. So wouldn't hurt, I might do that right now. So dear God and Goddess, creator of all that is, was, and ever shall be, I humbly ask for your protection as I read from this magical text, so that there are no interruptions or malevolent influences flowing through me or around me as I read to my YouTube audience and subscribers and anyone who stumbles across these videos in the known multiverse. I ask for protection and that I be opened up to guidance and inspiration in the most benevolent, beneficial ways for my own highest good and the highest good of all who come into contact with me, but not during the actual reading process. Amen. Vasala. Ahai. So we'll begin reading, and we'll just, this is kind of a teaching mechanism. A lot of you who are into the students of the occult will have heard of Hermes Trismegistus, and that's basically what the Kybalion is, a Hermetic philosophy believed to be written or inspired by Hermes Trismegistus. It actually says by 3 initiates. But anyway, I thought it would be a useful, practical, magical thing to read from. And as much as I thoroughly enjoyed reading all the Jewish American short stories and other short stories, I've brought out a book of American short stories maybe for later on or tomorrow, which some of them are quite lovely. I wanted to read the first one, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, but I decided instead to go with this magical kind of philosophy. Copyright, it says 1912, Yogi Publication Society, and then another copyright in 1940. So the front page here says, to Hermes Trismegistus, known by the ancient Egyptians as the great and masters of masters, this little volume of Hermetic teachings is reverently dedicated. So I'll just read through starting from the introduction, and we'll work our way through until I get tired, and then I'll split up the videos according to where it is that I peg out, I guess. And just got to go with my energy flow states, which can be compromised from time to time. Before we get into that, I want to show you what arrived today. I'm very happy about it. Just go get it. I posted it on Instagram because my Titania's Realm Instagram page is dedicated to my silversmithing journey and my creativity and my making jewellery, and I also have on there I have all my other artistic endeavours, so it's all kind of on that page. But I bought this, I ordered it a few days ago and it just arrived today, and it's quite lovely. It's a Versailles by Gorham pattern, and it's a luncheon fork. So I thought I can transmute that into I don't really need any more rings, but I'm just going to continue to make them until such time as I'm ready to have another crack at selling them again, but not for the foreseeable future, I don't think, because I'm a bit bitter that nothing's sold, quite frankly. But I need to maintain my skills, and I've always wanted this pattern. It's very pretty design. So I got a few options. Here's the back of it that I could make from it. I could just chop the bit off where the lady is, turn it into a pendant, and then hang something lovely off the bottom perhaps. Or I can just chop this part off from here to here and bend it into a ring, which is probably what I'm likely to do. And then the fork I'll cut off, and I can cut it in half, and I can make more snake tongues for my snake design bracelets. But I'm not sure if I'm going to make any more. I wear the two I already made. But anyway, I can make other things, like I can bend the tines and curl them up and make all sorts of interesting designs from that. So anyway, that was my today's acquisition. I haven't bought anything in flatware for a long time because I haven't had any money, basically any spare cash, and I've been conscientiously paying off that fucking parking fine, $322. I think I still owe $80 on that, and then that'll be done and dusted. So that was annoying because that's, $320 could have gone into things like this. So, but anyway, I'm getting there. I'm going to just keep buying the odd piece that I see that I feel inspired to buy, and keep making things because I enjoy it, and guess my kids will inherit it one day, or I'll give it away as gifts or whatever. Eventually find someone that's interested in purchasing things, but I'm not going to prostitute myself to make myself sell things via social media because it's just too hard. It's just too hard to get any sales, and soul depleting, soul defeating, and I have enough to get by on with my pension. I don't need to, cause myself great distress and which trigger breakdowns and all that bullshit. I'll just make according to my whims when I feel like it, and when it sparks joy. And so that's where I'm at with that. But yeah, the person that sold it, the company that sold it, they even polished it beautifully, and it's just really quite lovely. They sent me a little note saying they have plenty more silver, and gave me the address of their store, which is in Albion. I actually bought this online. Might check out their store actually. When I get my small settlement, I might allocate a few $100s to buy a few little bits and pieces, and I'll check out their store and see what they've got. And so that's all very lovely. I've just had another parcel arrive. So I've bought a few oils that I need to make my toe fungus oil, foot oil for my toenails. So that's probably what that is. It's just arrived. Anyway, let me just focus and get into our reading, beginning with the introduction. The Kybalion. We take great pleasure in presenting to the attention of students and investigators of the secret doctrines this little work based upon the world-old Hermetic teachings. There has been so little written upon the subject, notwithstanding the countless references to the teachings in the many works upon occultism, that the many earnest searchers after the arcane truths will doubtless welcome the appearance of the present volume. The purpose of this work, smearing lipstick everywhere. The purpose of this work is not the enunciation of any special philosophy or doctrine, but rather is to give to the students a statement of the truth which will serve to reconcile the many bits of occult knowledge that they may have acquired, but which are apparently opposed to each other, and which often serve to discourage and disgust the beginner in the study. Our intent is not to erect a new temple of knowledge, but rather to place in the hands of the student a master key with which he may open the many inner doors in the temporary of mystery through the main portals he has already entered. There is no portion of the occult teachings possessed by the world which have been so closely guarded as the fragments of the Hermetic teachings, which have come down to us over the tens of centuries which have elapsed since the lifetime of its great founder, Hermes Trismegistus, the scribe of the gods, who dwelt in old Egypt in the days when the present race of men was in its infancy. Contemporary with Abraham, and if the legends be true, an instructor of that venerable sage, Hermes was and is the great central sun of occultism, whose rays have served to illumine the countless teachings which have been promulgated since his time. All the fundamental and basic teachings embedded in the esoteric teachings of every race may be traced back to Hermes. Even the most ancient teachings of India undoubtedly have their roots in the original Hermetic teachings. From the land of the Ganges, many advanced occultists wandered to the land of Egypt and sat at the feet of the Master. From him they obtained the Master Key, which explained and reconciled their divergent views, and thus the secret doctrine was firmly established. From other lands also came the learned ones, all of whom regarded Hermes as the master of masters, and his influence was so great that in spite of the many wanderings from the path on the part of the centuries of teachers in these different lands, there may still be found a certain basic resemblance and correspondence which underlies the many and often quite divergent theories entertained and taught by the occultists of these different lands today. The student of comparative religions will be able to perceive the influence of the Hermetic teachings in every religion worthy of the name. Now known to man, whether it be a dead religion or one in full vigour in our own times. I just had a funny thought. See, I'm doing it again. Prayer of protection didn't even work. Stop it, Tanya. Save your segues for another video. There is always a certain correspondence in spite of the contradictory features, and the Hermetic teachings act as the great reconciler. The life work of Hermes seems to have been in the direction of planting the great seed truth, which has grown and blossomed in so many strange forms, rather than to establish a school of philosophy which would dominate the world's thought. But, yes, Charlie, nevertheless, the original truths taught by him have been kept intact in their original purity by a few men in each age who, refusing great numbers of half-developed students and followers, followed the Hermetic custom and reserved their truth for the few who were ready to comprehend and master it. I knew you were going to do that, Demon Bird. Man. I've got to be quick with her cloaca. By the goddess. Followed the Hermetic custom and reserved their truth for the few who were ready to comprehend and master it. No, ladies. From lip to ear, the truth has been handed down among the few. There have always been a few initiates in each generation in the various lands of the earth who kept alive the sacred flame of the Hermetic teachings, and such have always been willing to use their lamps to relight the lesser lamps of the outside world, when the light of truth grew dim and clouded by reason of neglect, and when the wicks became clogged with foreign matter. There were always a few to tend faithfully the altar of the truth, upon which was kept alight the perpetual lamp of wisdom. These men devoted their lives to the labour of love, which the poet has so well stated in his lines. Oh, let not the flame die out, cherished age after age in its dark cavern, in its holy temples cherished, fed by pure ministers of love. Let not the flame die out. These men have never sought popular approval nor numbers of followers. They are indifferent to these things, for they know how few there are in each generation who are ready for the truth, or who would recognise it if it were presented to them. There is I know, my neck still hurts, I know. Yes, I think I've been very naughty indeed. I acknowledge that. They reserve, but don't control me. Let me find this notice on my own. They reserve the strong meat for men, while others furnish the milk for babes. They reserve their pearls of wisdom for the few elect who recognise their value and who wear them in their crowns, instead of casting them before the materialistic or vulgar swine who would trample them in the mud and, mix them with their disgusting mental food. What are you doing, Charlie? That is a strange position to put your neck in, wedged between my forefinger and my thumb. Do you want a sore neck like Mama? Do you want to do the mosh? You ready? We'll do the mosh. Ready? 1, 2, 3. No, we won't because my neck's too sore. I'm not moshing today. I'll save it for Friday. Yes. Friday we will do the mosh. Hopefully my neck will be better by then. I'm laughing because I promised I wouldn't do it anymore. Under great threats and control dramas, when I reclaim my power and reclaim my mosh, I'm now pain. But I'm probably a little bit out of, like the muscles are a little bit taut because when you do it regularly, the muscles are stronger. It's exercising the muscles, like other muscles. They're a little bit atrophied by now, but we won't mention those. Anyway, it doesn't matter, people of Earth. I'm perfectly okay. I just have a little bit of a stiff neck. I'm a stiff-necked Jewish girl, Jewish woman, for a reason. Oh, I heard that crack. Anyway, but still these men have never forgotten or overlooked the original teachings of Hermes regarding the passing on of the words of truth to those ready to receive it, which teaching is stated in the Kybalion as follows. Wherefore the footsteps of the Master, the ears of those ready for his teaching, open wide. And again, when the ears of the student are ready to hear, then cometh the lips to fill them with wisdom. But their customary attitude has always been strictly in accordance with the other Hermetic aphorism, also in the Kybalion. The lips of wisdom are closed, except to the ears of understanding. There are those who have criticised this attitude of the Hermetists, and who have claimed that they did not manifest the proper spirit in their policy of seclusion and reticence. But a moment's glance back over the pages of history will show the wisdom of the masters, who knew the folly of attempting to teach the world that which it was neither ready or willing to receive. So if you're watching this video and you clicked on it because you saw that I'm reading the Kybalion, hopefully you're ready to receive the light and the knowledge and the enlightenment therein. If not, it'll just go right over your head and it'll just be me reading words that have no real meaning to you except for the dulcet tones of my voice as it rises and falls, and some of you get off on that, which is unfortunate, but you know, whatever people of Earth, I hope you actually gain something from my videos, not just, you know, looking at me and hearing my voice. It's the energy and the spirit behind it that I'm actually wanting you to receive or explore or contemplate, and with deep respect, by the way. No filthy perverts like that one I mentioned in the video yesterday. Disgusting it is. So, all that one will gain from that gnosis is his own withering in his own spirit for being dishonouring of the Tanya, by the way. The Hermetists have never sought to be martyrs and have instead sat silently aside with a pitying smile on their closed lips while the heathen raged noisily about them in their customary amusement of putting to death and torture the honest but misguided enthusiasts who imagined that they could force upon a race of barbarians the truth capable of being understood only by the elect who had advanced along the path. The spirit of persecution has not as yet died out in the land. There are certain Hermetic teachings which, if publicly promulgated, would bring down upon the teachers a great cry of scorn and revilement from the multitude, who would again raise the cry of "Crucify, crucify." In this little work we have endeavoured to give you an idea of the fundamental teachings of the Kybalion, striving to give you the working principles, leaving you to apply them yourselves, rather than attempting to work out the teaching in detail. If you are a true student, you will be able to work out and apply these principles. If not, then you must develop yourself into one, for otherwise the Hermetic teachings will be as words, words, words to you. Signed, the Three Initiates. Chapter 1. The Hermetic Philosophy. The lips of wisdom are closed, except to the ears of understanding. The Kybalion. From old Egypt have come the fundamental esoteric teachings, which have so strongly influenced the philosophies of all races, nations and peoples for several thousand years. Egypt, the home of the pyramids and the Sphinx, was the birthplace of the hidden wisdom and mystic teachings. From her secret doctrine all nations have borrowed. India, Persia, Chaldea, Media, China, Japan, Assyria, ancient Greece and Rome, and other ancient countries partook liberally at the feast of knowledge which the hierophants and masters of the land of Isis so freely provided for those who came prepared to partake of the great store of mystic and occult lore which the masterminds of that ancient land had gathered together. In ancient Egypt dwelt the great adepts and masters who have never been surpassed and who seldom have been equalled during the centuries that have taken their processional flight since the days of the great Hermes. In Egypt was located the great lodge of lodges of the mystics. At the doors of her temples entered the neophytes who, afterward, as hierophants, adepts, and masters, travelled to the four corners of the earth, carrying with them the precious knowledge which they were ready. Anxious and willing to pass on to those who were ready to receive the same. All students of the occult recognize the debt that they owe to these venerable masters of that ancient land. But among these great masters of ancient Egypt, there once dwelt one of whom masters hailed as the Master of Masters. This man, if man indeed he was, dwelt in Egypt in the earliest days. Just watching two little butterflies chasing each other on a mating ritual. It feels sweet. He was known as Hermes Trismegistus. He was the father of the occult wisdom, the father of astrology, the discoverer of alchemy. The details of his life story are lost to history owing to the lapse of the years, though several of the ancient countries disputed with each other in their claims to the honour of having furnished his birthplace, and this thousands of years ago. The date of his sojourn in Egypt, and that his last incarnation on this planet, is not now known, but it has been fixed at the early days of the oldest dynasties of Egypt, long before the days of Moses. The best authorities regard him as a contemporary of Abraham, and some of the Jewish traditions go so far as to claim that Abraham acquired a portion of his mystic knowledge from Hermes himself. As the years rolled by after his passing from this plane of life, tradition recording that he lived 300 years in the flesh, the Egyptians deified Hermes and made him one of their gods under the name of Thoth or Toth. Years after, the people of ancient Greece also made him one of their many gods, calling him Hermes, the god of wisdom. The Egyptians revered his memory for many centuries, yes, tens of centuries, calling him the scribe of the gods and bestowing upon him distinctively his ancient title, Trismegistus, which means the thrice great. The great, the greatest, great, etc. In all the ancient lands, the name of Hermes Trismegistus was revered, the name being synonymous with the fount of wisdom. Even to this day, we use the term Hermetic in the sense of secret, sealed so that nothing can escape, etc. And this by reason of the fact that the followers of Hermes always observed the principle of secrecy in their teachings. They did not believe in casting pearls before swine, but rather held to the teaching, milk for babes, meat for strong men. Both of which maxims are familiar to readers of the Christian scriptures, but both of which have been used by the Egyptians for centuries before the Christian era. Oh dear goddess. And this policy of careful dissemination of the truth has always characterized the Hermetics even unto the present day. The Hermetic teachings are to be found in all lands, among all religions, but never identified with any particular country, nor with any particular religious sect. This because of the warning of the ancient teachers against allowing the secret doctrine to become crystallized into a creed. The wisdom of this caution is apparent to all students of history. The ancient occultism of India and Persia degenerated and was largely lost, owing to the fact that the teachers became priests and so mixed theology with the philosophy, and the result being that the occultism of India and Persia has been gradually lost amidst the mass of religious superstition, cults, creeds, and gods. So it was with ancient Rome and Greece. So it was with the Hermetic teachings of the Gnostics and early Christians, which were lost at the time of Constantine, whose iron hand smothered philosophy with the blanket of theology, losing to the Christian Church that which was its very essence and spirit, and causing it to grope throughout several centuries before it found the way back to its ancient faith, the indications apparent to all careful observers in this 20th century. We're now into the 21st century, 24 years into it actually, quarter of the way through almost, being that the church is now struggling to get back to its ancient mystic teachings. But there were always a few faithful souls who kept alive the flame, tending it carefully and not allowing its light to become extinguished. And, thanks to these staunch hearts and fearless minds, we have the truth still with us. But it is not found in books to any great extent. It has been passed along from master to student, from initiate to hierophant, from lip to ear. When it was written down at all, its meaning was veiled in terms of alchemy and astrology, so that only those possessing the key could read it aright. This was made necessary in order to avoid the persecutions of the theologians of the Middle Ages, who fought the secret doctrine with fire and sword, stake, gibbet, and cross. Even to this day there will be found but few reliable books on the Hermetic philosophy, although there are countless references to it in many books written on various phases of occultism. And yet the Hermetic philosophy is the only master key which will open all the doors of the occult teachings. In the early days there was a compilation of certain basic Hermetic doctrines, passed on from teacher to student, which was known as the Kybalion, the exact significance and meaning of the term having been lost for several centuries. This teaching, however, is known to many to whom it has descended from mouth to ear, on and on through the centuries. Why is there a diabetes testing stick being used as a bookmark? Pretty sure that's what it is. My mother must have had her hands on this book at some time, some stage. Its precepts have never been written down or printed so far as we know. It is merely a collection of maxims, axioms and precepts, which were non-understandable to outsiders, but which were readily understood by students after the axioms, maxims and precepts had been explained and exemplified by the Hermetic initiates to their neophytes. These teachings really constituted the basic principles of the art of Hermetic alchemy, which, contrary to the general belief, dealt in the mastery of mental forces rather than material elements, the transmutation of one kind of mental vibrations into others, instead of the changing of one kind of metal into another. The legends of the philosopher's stone, which would turn base metal into gold, was an allegory relating to Hermetic philosophy, readily understood by all students of true Hermeticism. In this little book, of which this is the first lesson, we invite our students to examine into the Hermetic teachings as set forth in the Kybalion, and as explained by ourselves, humble students of teachings, who, while bearing the title of initiates, are still students at the feet of Hermes, the Master. We herein give you many of the maxims, axioms, and precepts of the Kybalion, accompanied by explanations and illustrations, which we deem likely to render the teachings more easily comprehended by the modern student, particularly as the original text is purposely veiled in obscure terms. The original maxims, axioms, and precepts of the Kybalion are printed herein in quotation marks, the proper credit being given. Our own work is printed in the regular way in the body of the work. We trust that the many students to whom we now offer this little work will derive as much benefit from the study of its pages as have the many who have gone on before, treading the same path to mastery throughout the centuries that have passed since the times of Hermes Trismegistus, the master of masters, the great, great. In the words of the Kybalion, where fall the footsteps of the Master, the ears of those ready for his teaching open wide. The Kybalion. When the ears of the student are ready to hear, then cometh the lips to fill them with wisdom. Another quote from the Kybalion. So that according to the teachings, the passage of this book to those ready for instruction will attract the attention of such as are prepared to receive the teaching, and likewise, when the pupil is ready to receive the truth, then will this little book come to him or her. My mother gifted me this book, many years ago. I can't remember if I was still married or if it was after I'd left my marriage. But yes, many, many years ago I've had this book gifted to me. Some random car pulling up. If I had a visitor, but no, I don't think so anyway. Don't recognise the vehicle. And likewise, when the pupil is ready to receive the truth, we read that, this little book will come to him or her. Such is the law. The Hermetic principle of cause and effect, in its aspect of the law of attraction, will bring lips and ear together. Pupil and book in company, so mote it be. There are quite a few cars randomly coming up and down the top end of my street here, which is, it's a dead end. It's odd how I get so many each day coming. It's quite odd. Anyway, I guess just people being lost or just cruising around looking at houses maybe. Chapter 2. The 7 Hermetic Principles. The principles of truth are 7. He who knows these understandingly possesses the magic key before whose touch all the doors of the temple fly open, the Kybalion. The 7 Hermetic principles upon which the entire Hermetic philosophy is based are as follows. 1. The principle of mentalism. 2. The principle of correspondence. 3. The principle of vibration. 4. The principle of polarity. 5. The principle of rhythm. 6. The principle of cause and effect. 7. The principle of gender. These 7 principles will be discussed and explained as we proceed with these lessons. A short explanation of each, however, may as well be given at this point. Number 1, the principle of mentalism. The all is mind. The universe is mental, meaning everything comes from thought, or the energy which we recognize as thought. This principle embodies the truth that all is mind. It explains that the all, which is the substantial reality underlying all the outward manifestations and appearances which we know under the terms of the material universe, the phenomena of life, matter, energy, and, in short, all that is apparent to our material senses, is spirit, which in itself is unknowable and undefinable, but which may be considered and thought of as an universal, infinite, living mind. It also explains that all the phenomenal world or universe is simply a mental creation of the all, subject to the laws of created things, and that the universe as a whole and in its parts or units has its existence in the mind of the all, in which mind we live and move and have our being. This principle, by establishing the mental nature of the universe, easily explains all the varied mental and psychic phenomena that occupy such a large portion of the public attention, and which, without such explanation, are non-understandable and defy scientific treatment. An understanding of this great Hermetic principle of mentalism enables the individual to readily grasp the laws of the mental universe and to apply the same to his well-being and advancement. The Hermetic student is enabled to apply intelligently the great mental laws instead of using them in a haphazard manner. With the master key in his possession, the student may unlock the many doors of the mental and psychic temple of knowledge and enter the same freely and intelligently. This principle explains the true nature of energy, power, and matter, and why and how all these are subordinate to the mastery of mind. One of the old Hermetic masters wrote long ages ago, "He who grasps the truth of the mental nature of the universe is well advanced on the path to mastery." And these words are as true today as at the time they were first written. Without this master key, mastery is impossible, and the student knocks in vain at the many doors of the temple. Just gonna dash out and bring that parcel in out of my letterbox because I'm pretty sure it'll be some oils I bought, and I don't want them out in the heat and the sun, and they'll go rancid. So I'll just pop. I'll be back. Come along, Charlie. Just bear with me a moment, because Miss 5 is curious by nature. I have to open it, I have to know what it is. Terrible. I used to be a pain in the ass when I was being brought up a little Lutheran girl. My mother used to hide Christmas presents in the cupboard, and I'm so nosy and curious. I would sneak in and carefully unwrap the packaging to find out what the present was. But she got me good one year when I was about 8. The present I thought I was getting was given to someone else, and I was devastated, and I couldn't say a bloody thing because I wasn't supposed to know. And my mother knew. She just looked at me like this, and I knew that she knew that I knew that she was on to me, and that was, you know what, to be fair, that was the best punishment. It stopped me from sneak peeking Christmas presents forever after. I was a brat. I could be a brat too. Oh, it's my Hanukkah candles. Excellent. Excellent. I'm very pleased about that. Oh, by the goddess. I bought some very pretty decorated ones this year. Last year they were pretty too, but they were just different shades of blue. But this year I got, so I must have bought them last year too. Or were they the ones my benefactor bought me? Can't remember now. I think she bought those. But yes, these are all different colours. So my Hanukkah angel will be happy that Mama T, self-determined, bought her own candles this year, and I'm very grateful for all the wonderful gifts. But this year I've kicked the training wheels off, and I'm trying to fly independent, be an independent, financially autonomous woman. Dear Goddess. Well, some days I achieve it, some days I don't. But anyway, it's all good. Right, where were we? I'll carry on reading. I'm very tired today. I don't know why I'm so tired, but we'll carry on reading for a bit longer. And this book is 223 pages long, and we're only up to page 29, so I'm right, it's going to be a few videos, this one. But that's okay. You're learning, and I'm learning, and to learn is to teach, and to teach is to learn, and we might get something of value out of this, and if we don't, the fetishists are all enjoying themselves, and small violin. Anyway, I mean, you have to laugh. Chapter 2. The Principle of Correspondence. As above, so below. As below, so above. The Kybalion. It's also as within and so without. But anyway, that's probably a deeper teaching too. This principle embodies the truth that there is always a correspondence between the laws and phenomena of the various planes of being and life. The old Hermetic axiom ran in these words: as above, so below, as below, so above. And the grasping of this principle gives one the means of solving many a dark paradox and hidden secret of nature. There are planes beyond our knowing, that when we apply the principle of correspondence to them, we are able to understand much that would otherwise be unknowable to us. This principle is of universal application and manifestation on the various planes of the material, mental, and spiritual universe. It is an universal law. The ancient Hermetists considered this principle as one of the most important mental instruments by which man was able to pry aside the obstacles which hid from view the unknown. Its use even tore... Here's the rest of that stick still glued to my page. Ach, du liebe Gott, Omi was here. Anyway. No, it's another one. But it's how I know my mother had possession of this at some stage, because they're diabetes testing things. Anyway. Memories like the corners of my mind. Try not to think too much about that, actually, let's be fair. Its use even tore aside the veil of Isis to the extent that a glimpse of the face of the goddess might be caught. Just as a knowledge of the principles of geometry enables man to measure distant suns and their movements while seated in his observatory, so a knowledge of the principle of correspondence enables man to reason intelligently from the known to the unknown. Studying the monad, he understands the archangel. Number 3, the principle of vibration. Nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. Even seemingly, what's the word, non-living things like plastic printers and camphor laurel slabs and the chair I'm sitting on. All the atoms are actually vibrating at all time, just at a pace that we don't see. Perhaps a slower pace, or we don't quite understand the physics of it, but it is physics. So it's true that everything's in constant vibration. So sometimes, you might be in a shopping centre or anywhere, you could be anywhere, and someone will walk past, there'll be a crowd of people walking past, right? But someone will walk past you and you'll feel this frisson, this almost electricity go through you. It's because that person's soul signature or energy is actually kind of a match for yours, and you kind of communicate and you get this sort of a shake. Sometimes they're the opposite of you too, can go either way, but when you feel that, I always take notice of who that person is, because they are obviously someone from either your same soul group or you're meant to meet them on some level, although I don't usually go try and meet them. I just observe and go with the body's sensations, and sometimes I ponder if it's someone that I've known or past life or Doesn't happen all that often, but you'll get this kind of almost electrical charge. It's happened to me a few times. So yes, and it's not anything to do with sexuality. It'll just be, casual, somebody passing by or walking towards you, and just like a soul recognition. It's quite astonishing at times. This principle embodies the truth that everything is in motion, everything vibrates, nothing is at rest. Facts which modern science endorses, and which each new scientific discovery tends to verify. And yet this Hermetic principle was enunciated thousands of years ago by the masters of ancient Egypt. This principle explains that the differences between different manifestations of matter, energy, mind, and even spirit result largely from varying rates of vibration. From the all, which is pure spirit, down to the grossest form of matter, all is in vibration. The higher the vibration, the higher the position in the scale. The vibration of spirit is at such an infinite rate of intensity and rapidity that it is practically at rest, just as a rapidly moving wheel seems to be motionless. And at the other end of the scale, there are gross forms of matter whose vibrations are so low as to seem at rest. Between these poles, there are millions upon millions of varying degrees of vibration, from corpuscle and electron, atom and molecule, to worlds and universes. Everything is in vibratory motion. This is also true on the planes of energy and force, which are by varying degrees of vibration, which are but varying degrees of vibration, and also on the mental planes, whose states depend upon vibrations, and even on to the spiritual planes. An understanding of this principle, which with the appropriate formulas, enables Hermetic students to control their own mental vibrations as well as those of others. The masters also apply this principle to the conquering of natural phenomena in various ways. He who understands the principle of vibration has grasped the sceptre of power, says one of the old writers. Number 4, the principle of polarity. Everything is dual, everything has poles, everything has its pair of opposites. Like and unlike are the same. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. Extremes meet. All truths are but half-truths. All paradoxes may be reconciled. The Kybalion. This principle embodies the truth that everything is dual, everything has two poles, everything has its pair of opposites, all of which were old Hermetic axioms. It explains the old paradoxes that have perplexed so many, which have been stated as follows. Thesis and antithesis are identical in nature, but different in degree. Opposites are the same, differing only in degree. The pairs of opposites may be reconciled. Extremes meet. Everything is and isn't at the same time. All truths are but half-truths. Every truth is half false. There are two sides to everything, etc., etc., etc. It explains that in everything there are two poles or opposite aspects, and that opposites are really only the two extremes of the same thing with many varying degrees between them. To illustrate, heat and cold, although opposites, are really the same thing, the differences consisting merely of degrees of the same thing. Look at your thermometer and see if you can discover where heat terminates and cold begins. There is no such thing as absolute heat unless you live in Brisbane, Australia in the middle of summer, 45 degrees Celsius, or absolute cold unless you live in Siberia. The two terms, heat and cold, simply indicate varying degrees of the same thing, and that same thing, which manifests as heat and cold, is merely a form, variety, and rate of vibration, which this is absolutely true, what they're saying. It's just experienced in opposite ways. So, heat and cold are simply the two poles of that which we call heat, and the phenomena attendant thereupon are manifestations of the principle of polarity. We're craving for ice cream now, isn't that weird? All that talk of heat and cold. The same principle God damn it, smashed my tie again. The same principle manifests in the case of light and darkness, which are the same thing, the difference consisting of varying degrees between the two poles of the phenomena. Where does darkness leave off and light begin? What is the difference between large and small, between hard and soft, between black and white, between sharp and dull, between noise and quiet, between high and low, between positive and negative? The principle of polarity explains these paradoxes, and no other principle can supersede it. The same principle operates on the mental plane. Let us take a radical and extreme example, that of love and hate, two mental states apparently totally different. And yet there are degrees of hate and degrees of love, and a middle point in which we use the terms like or dislike, which shade into each other so gradually that sometimes we are at a loss to know whether we like or dislike or neither. And all is simply degrees of the same thing, as you will see if you will but think a moment. And, more than this, and considered of more importance by the Hermeticists, it is possible to change the vibrations of hate to the vibrations of love in one's own mind and in the minds of others. Many of you who read these lines have had personal experiences of the involuntary rapid transition from love to hate, and the reverse in your own case and that of others. And you will therefore realize the possibility of this being accomplished by the use of the will, by means of the Hermetic formulas. Good and evil are but the poles of the same thing, and the Hermeticist understands the art of transmuting evil into good by means of an application of the principle of polarity. In short, the art of polarization becomes a phase of mental alchemy, known and practiced by the ancient and modern Hermetic masters. An understanding of the principle will enable one to change his own polarity as well as that of others, if he will devote the time and study necessary to master the art. 4. The principle of rhythm. Everything flows out and in. Everything has its tides. All things rise and fall. The pendulum swing manifests in everything. The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. Rhythm compensates. The Kybalion. This principle embodies the truth that in everything there is manifested a measured motion, to and fro, a flow and inflow, a swing backward and forward, a pendulum-like movement, a tide-like ebb and flow, a high tide and low tide. Between the two poles which exist in accordance with the principle of polarity described a moment ago, there is always an action and a reaction, an advance and a retreat, a rising and a sinking. This is in the affairs of the universe, suns, worlds, men, animals, mind, energy, and matter. This law is manifest in the creation and destruction of worlds, in the rise and fall of nations, in the life of all things, and finally in the mental states of man, and it is with this latter that the Hermetists find the understanding of the principle most important. The Hermeticists have grasped this principle, finding its universal application, and have also discovered certain means to overcome its effects in themselves by the use of the appropriate formulas and methods. They apply the mental law of neutralization. They cannot annul the principle or cause it to cease its operation, but they have learned how to escape its effects upon themselves to a certain degree depending upon the mastery of the principle. They have learned how to use it instead of being used by it. In this and other methods consists the art of the Hermetists. The master of Hermetics polarizes himself at the point at which he desires to rest, and then neutralizes the rhythmic swing of the pendulum, which would tend to carry him to the other pole. All individuals who have attained any degree of self-mastery do this to a certain degree, more or less unconsciously, but the master does this consciously and by the use of his will, and attains a degree of poise and mental firmness almost impossible of belief on the part of the masses who are swung backward and forward like a pendulum. This principle and that of polarity have been closely studied by the Hermetists, and the methods of counteracting, neutralizing, and using them form an important part of the Hermetic mental alchemy. 6. The principle of cause and effect. Every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause. Everything happens according to law. Chance is but a name for law not recognized. There are many planes of causation, but nothing escapes the law, the Kybalion. This principle embodies the fact that there is a cause for every effect and effect from every cause. It explains that everything happens according to law, that nothing ever merely happens, that there is no such thing as chance, that while there are various planes of cause and effect, the higher dominating the lower planes, still nothing ever entirely escapes the law. The Hermetists understand the art and methods of rising above the ordinary plane of cause and effect to a certain degree, and by mentally rising to a higher plane, they become causes instead of effects. The masses of people are carried along, obedient to environment, the wills and desires of others stronger than themselves, heredity, suggestion, and other outward causes, moving them about like pawns on the chessboard of life. But the masters, rising to the plane above, dominate their moods, characters, qualities, and powers, as well as the environment surrounding them, and became movers instead of pawns. They help to play the game of life instead of being played and moved about by other wills and environment. They use the principle instead of being its tools. The masters obey the causation of the higher planes, but they help to rule on their own plane. In this statement there is condensed a wealth of Hermetic knowledge. Let him read who can. Number 7. The principle of gender. Gender is in everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principles. Gender manifests on all planes. The Kybalion. Number 7. The principle of gender. This principle embodies the truth that there is gender manifested in everything, the masculine and feminine principles ever at work. This is true not only of the physical plane, but of the mental and even the spiritual planes. On the physical plane, the principle manifests as sex. On the higher planes, it takes higher forms, but the principle is ever the same. No creation, physical, mental, or spiritual, is possible without this principle. An understanding of its laws will throw light on many a subject that has perplexed the minds of men. The principle of gender works ever in the direction of generation, regeneration, and creation. Everything and every person contains the two elements or principles, or this great principle within him, her, or it. Every male thing has the female element also. Every female contains also the male principle. If you would understand the philosophy of mental and spiritual creation, generation, and regeneration, you must understand and study this Hermetic principle. It contains the solution of many mysteries of life. We caution you that this principle has no reference to the many base, pernicious, and degrading lustful theories, teachings, and practices which are taught under fanciful titles, which are the prostitution of the great natural principle of gender. Such base revivals of the ancient infamous forms of phallicism tend to ruin mind, body, and soul, and the Hermetic philosophy has ever sounded the warning note against these degraded teachings which tend towards lust, licentiousness, and perversion of nature's principles. If you seek such teachings, you must go elsewhere for them. Hermeticism contains nothing for you along those lines. To the pure, all things are pure. To the base, all things are base. And I don't know if you could see it, but I'm on the brink of passing out with exhaustion. I woke up very early this morning. I woke up at 5 and I knocked myself down to sleep a bit more, and I woke up again at 7. I actually got up at 7, which is very early, and I got up and I made a cup of tea and took my vitamins and my vitamin D and folic acid and some other thing that I'm trying that it's nearly completed, but I haven't noticed a difference. Ginkgo biloba or something. It's supposed to give you clarity of thought, but I haven't really felt any improvement with that. And I've had terrible problems with my skin since I started with it, so I think I'm not going to continue with taking that. I've nearly finished the whole, however many capsules were in that. Well, I'm exhausted, so I'm going to sign off now. Put Gisela's stick back in, I guess. It's kind of weird that she used that as a bookmark, but that's my mother for you. And we'll continue with a second and a third. Looks like 1, 2, maybe four more videos to complete this book. But we'll continue either later today or tomorrow, because I'm utterly exhausted. I was sort of struggling to not pass out while I was finishing off that reading. So, I had a wonderful time on Friday night. No regrets. Je ne regrette rien, but I'm in, I call this my reverting to Crondom recovery mode, and sometimes it knocks me around a bit, and sometimes I recover usually by Monday, but yeah, I'm exhausted, so just have to go with how my body feels about things and let her be my guide. Sometimes I push my physicality a little bit too much and then I get sick, so don't want to be sick. So we'll finish up today, and as always, God and Goddess bless, and I hope you enjoyed that reading, and it's interesting teaching if nothing else, and I'll speak to you as soon as possible in the space-time continuum. Bye for now from Titania's realm at Sacred Space.